Hello everyone, my name is Richard Holman, and this will be my discussion presentation in a PowerPoint format for The Fall of the House of Usher, A True Story of Horror. The main topic of my paper covered, is Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher a true example of horror? In Leo Spitzer's article, A Reinterpretation of the Fall of the House of Usher, critics claim that Poe's short story does not induce fear into its readers. Likewise, they claim that it contains no true form of tragedy. Leo Spitzer's A Reinterpretation of the Fall of the House of Usher analyzes Edgar Allan Poe's short story to better explain how it is a classic example of horror. He does this by revealing Poe's compelling and complex use of setting, theme, characters, and symbolism. Poe first does this with setting by creating a dark and dreary setting that foreshadows things to come. This can be seen when the narrator first arrives at the house of Usher, and Poe writes, "I looked upon the scene before me, upon the mere house, and the simple landscape features of the domain, upon a few rank sedges, and upon a few white trunks of decayed trees, with an utter depression of the soul, which I can compare to no earthly sensation." Poe also compares the setting of the House of Usher to the character of Roderick Usher, and Timmerman agrees with this when he writes, "An effect which the physique of the grey walls and the turrets of the dim tarn into which they all looked down had at length brought upon the morale of his existence." Poe also creates a story of horror by consistently using the theme of terror. He does this by revealing the consequences of fear which lead to Roderick's self-destruction. Spitzer explains this when he states, "The psychological law formulated here by Poe, fear increased by consciousness of fear, is valid especially for the mnemonic Roderick, who throughout the story is conscious of his folly." Similar in his use of setting, Poe's use of terror as a theme foreshadows the dark and ominous ending to The Fall of the House of Usher. Poe explains this when he writes of Roderick, "I shall perish. I must perish in the deplorable folly I have, indeed, no abhorrence of danger, except in its absolute effect and terror. I feel that the period will sooner or later arrive when I must abandon life and reason together in some struggle with the grim phantom fear." Poe also creates a story of horror through his use of characters with great depth and complexity. He does this by relating Roderick to the concept of death and Madeline to that of life. This is explained by Spitzer when he writes, "Surely the lofty and enshrouded figure of the Lady Madeline of Usher, as she is presented to us in the apotheosis of Majesty and Death, this female enthralled returned blood-stained as a conqueror from her battle with the dragon, a battle that broke the enchantment of death, is the true male and last hero of the House of Usher, while her brother has in the end become a figure of passivity, whose body is reduced to a trembling mass." Finally, Poe uses the literary device of symbolism to connect the death of the Usher family to the physical fall of the House of Usher itself. He also uses this type of symbolism to create true fear and tragedy in the story for its readers by connecting these events to Poe's use of setting and theme as literary devices. Timmerman explains this when he states, "Preternaturally charged with his romantic instincts, Roderick hears above the storm the approaching footsteps of Madeline. She enters, falls upon her brother, and together they die. The splitting pairs have conjoined once again, but tragically this time. The separation had gone to the extreme, disrupting the sentient balance, destroying both. As the narrator flees, the house itself parallels the act of Roderick and Madeline, first splitting apart along the zigzag fissure, and then collapsing together into the tarn." So is Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher a true example of horror? Not necessarily. This is because all stories are subject to a variety of different interpretations from their readers. Thank you for watching. This is the work cited for this presentation as well as my paper. It was a pleasure working with all of you this past semester. Thank you again, and take care.